Welcome back to Youthpad, and today we are discussing the impact of COVID-19 on education, and with me in studio is Reverend Thego Motahi from Presbyterian University of East Africa, trying to, as we reflect together on the education sector in this country and how much it has been affected by the COVID-19. And Mr. Reverend Thego, talking about online learning, we have some institutions that have started telling parents to pay some amount of fees so that the learning can continue. What's your take on that?
I think, as I said, the education sector was not prepared for the pandemic, and no institution, I guess, was ready to offer online education. But I'm sure because universities and colleges would want to earn money, and since they also undergoing financial stress, they were also undergoing financial stress even before the outbreak of the pandemic. They would like to earn money. Therefore, when they talk about charges for online education, we need somebody who can really vet what online education they are offering for them to charge a certain amount of money. And since they had already stipulated the fees, the tuition fees that should be paid when the students were in session, I would think that money would still be adequate or even surplus for them to offer online education. Hence, I think it would not be right for any institution, unless we are advised otherwise, to ask for extra money, because already universities were charging money for ICT. Yeah. There's a unit or something to that extent about ICT that universities were charging. Now that the students are not in session, I think the money the students pay for fees would be adequate. Again, knowing that this is piloting, knowing that it has never been tried before. So universities should go out of their way and offer this online education without charging distressed learners and their parents and guardians, asking for more money for something we are not very sure of. And again, as I said, we should have a body that is trying to vet this online education. Is it really online education? And does it come with a cost, as they would ask money for? Let us not be so quick to ask for money for something that has not been tried, for something that has not been successful, because we may end up giving learners a raw deal. Yes. That would be my take on that area.
Okay. And also in terms of younger students, pupils at primary schools, talking about online, that is remote learning. How can this be effectively done to ensure that there is a sort of flexible scheduling so that we take care of the children?
Where there is online learning, there is a module even for young children, something that would work for them, so that you don't bombard them with so much, yet their minds can only take this retro. The concentration span of young learners is very small. But where online education is successful, they have modules for such an age. And my worry is that maybe we do not have that. I know that there are some young children who are very conversant with digital gadgets, because when they were born, they have been able to access these and make use of them. But there are others who are still trying to learn how these are used. Young children learn very fast. But again, you have to avail these gadgets for them. You have to ensure that they are supervised. So it would be a bit not easy to bring young children on board without proper supervision of somebody who understands. And that's why it would have been good if this had been piloted earlier. But now trying it out there with parents who may even be ignorant than their children, then who is going to supervise the children as they go through this? And the teachers themselves, they themselves may also not be conversant with the use of ICT. Of course, there are many who are, but there may be a possibility of others who are not. Yeah. Hence, it is not something you can, lash into and assume that it will be successful. Yeah. Yes.
So, and also you've talked about parents supervising their children. What about that pupil, that children who is in the interior of Turkana in the rural setup? Who is going to supervise? Maybe the parents maybe doesn't have that knowledge when it comes to ICT operation.
Well, Ghana, that's a very big challenge, because we know that we have situations where parents are even absent. We have situations where children are not in their homes. Hence, if you expect this to be successful, there are many things you need to put into account. Because if the children are not with their parents, because there are areas where people live nomadic lives, and children are out there for pastures, the parents are away for pastures, who is actually going to supervise these children to ensure that they do what is expected when you are trying to, assuming that even that online education is reaching them? Who is going to supervise? Who is going to be there for them? In case they get stuck, who is going to help them to get out of the situation that they are in? And we know that our country has situations that are very difficult. Like now we know in West Pokot and is it Elgeyo Marakwet, there were floods.
Yeah.
People are displaced, homes were destroyed, and that's not the only place. Floods have affected very many places.
Sure.
And things have been destroyed, lives have been lost. So how do you avail education in such a context? So this is not something that we can latch into. This is not something we can say is going to work, because we may end up only attending to the needs of a fraction of the population, leaving out a bigger percentage of the population unattended. And that is not the purpose of education. If you go into the Bill of Rights in our Constitution, education is a right.
Yeah.
But when you bring it online, as we are saying,
Yeah.
you are excluding quite a big population of our children because they will not access this education. Yes. So you have violated the Constitution. So you just need to say that you have covered the syllabus for someone to go to court, Mtata to go to court and say, this education was not available to everybody, yes, because some people could not access it because they were suffering from this or that. Yes. Even the partial lockdown in some of the counties have affected some parents. There are some parents who are away from their children. So they are not even there to avail what is needed for online education, because I remember there was a lady who was talking the other day and saying she went to Eldoret for a function, then the lockdown was declared, Nairobi was closed, so she can't get back. On that day, the 21 days were elapsing, she thought then she would come back, only to be told there's another extension. So how do you expect such a parent who is supposed to be there to avail what the paraphernalia needed for ICT to be there for her children? So there are things that we cannot really overlook. But as I said, you need parents to get, you need all stakeholders to work with their children in the implementation of online education.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, Reverend, talking about schools serves as a place, apart from education, schools also serves as a place where someone is offered support, social and physical. It is also a place where someone can feel a sense of security. I mean, what do you know do you know anything about non-education challenges and support for students?
Sure. The fact that children are not going to school, Gala, has also brought in other challenges, because as you have said, there are children who go to school because there will be food.
Yeah.
There's provision for food. They don't take any other meal other than the meal they receive at school. Yeah. Now that one is gone. We know even in urban areas, schools act as babysitters. Because some homes, they do not have nannies, they do not have house helps. The parents are happy because as they go to work, the children also go to school, and therefore they will be taken care of by the teachers, yes, to come back in the evening and meet with their parents. Yeah. So other than the interruption of learning, there are also interruptions of many other areas in the life of the pupils, in the lives of the learners, in the lives of all stakeholders. There are also people who supply those schools. They are also affected because they can no longer supply because the schools are closed. So it has a multiplier effect on very many areas of the economy and even on matters society. Because as I said, the students who go to school to get a meal will not get it. Again, let's assume that some parents had already paid fees. That is money they knew they would not have. They did not have at home to take care of their children because they had already surrendered it to the school. Now the money is in school because it will not be refunded. And the students are back home and they need the services that they require that would have been offered in school. So again, that again brings another challenge. So there are myriad of challenges. A good survey needs to be done to document the kind of interruption to life that has come as a result of closure of schools.
Okay, talking about also homeschooling is also seen as an alternative to traditional in a classroom setting. What kind of systems are there for emergency learning, like in the wake of this crisis?
Traditionally, we know that home was the school where a lot of learning took place. And even today, a lot of learning takes place in homes. But I think many of our parents have, had already surrendered that to schools. So many of our parents are not very well versed with how to handle learning. Although the learning in homes is not usually a structured thing, but it will still need people who are ready to offer it. The skills that young people learn from their parents, they learn from homes. But remember that some homes are not even safe for children. We know that there is violence directed at children in very many forms when they're at home. And that's why even parents would prefer their children to be in school, because there are all manner of predators out there out to harm children. Well, fortunately now there may be more parents at home than there were previously. But I dare say that even some parents have also turned out to be harmful to their own children. So the matter of homeschooling may work to a certain percentage and may not work. One, because the parents may not be well equipped to administer it. And two, because of the environment in some of the homes. Okay. And we know there are people who live in formal setups where they do not even have adequate space for such learning, because, one room to another, there isn't adequate space for you to do certain things. Hence, it is something we should think about going into the future, about how we can make our homes a place where children learn. There are homes that I would say are ready for it, but there are many others that are not ready for such learning. Yes.
Okay, graduates have been also hardly hit by the emergency of this virus. Take an example, Riara University had to postpone its graduation owing to this pandemic. What can you say about graduation calendars that are always due this year? Maybe November, we have always others on July and December.
Well, graduations are pegged on coverage of syllabus. Unless those to graduate had already covered their curriculum and were waiting for graduation, as it is the case in some universities. Yes. But if those in session was the ones to graduate, then it will be difficult to graduate them, because what will you do with what they have not covered? There is that talk of ICT and online learning. If it can be availed, then it can help. Because graduation does not have to take place as a big ceremony. We can have a sort of make-believe graduation where you have a few people and the rest graduating in absentia. Because even when we have those big graduation ceremonies, not everybody attends. Yeah. And the physical non-attendance of a graduation does not stop you from graduating. So graduation as a ceremony does not have to take place the way it does. It still can happen if syllabus has been fully covered. Yes. But the challenge will be, has the syllabus been covered? Any practical work that you are required to do, which cannot be undertaken now, is part of the syllabus. If you are not able to avail that, you are not ready for a graduation. Because the hours that will be covered through attachment, maybe I'm doing a course in mass communication. I need to come here and work with you. Yeah. Now, because of social distancing, you may not allow me to come and sit with you here. You take me aloud and involve me. So if I'm doing a course in mass communication, I may not graduate, because there is a missing unit in my syllabus. Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. The graduations may only take place if the students had already gone through the syllabus as stipulated. Yeah. If they had not gone through it, then the case of Riara University will be repeated in many other universities.
Okay. For the few colleges and universities that will make to graduate their students, do you think there's a need to have policies in place to support these graduates, so that to support their entry into the labor market, so as to avoid long unemployment periods?
I think it's still possible to, if people have graduated, if we have graduates, I think organizations should be ready to recruit. Although I know they will also be reluctant to recruit because of the challenge of finances. But organizations should be ready to recruit because you don't have to do physical interviews. There are still virtual interviews that can be undertaken. Although I'm sure many institutions would want a situation where they have to see the person and interview them, look at a number of things in the candidate. So I'm not sure how this would unfold, but although I know that there are institutions that would interview you, because that happens. You can even apply for a job and be interviewed without physically going there. But these are very few jobs. Most of the jobs, they would want to see you so that they know who they are interviewing, even if they were to interview you virtually. So there will still be a slowdown. There are some institutions that may hire, very few, but many institutions will prefer to wait and see. But I think once one has graduated, it will be good for them to wait while they have graduated if they have covered the syllabus, rather than not have graduated yet they have covered the syllabus and then have to graduate and then start another process of job seeking.
Yeah.
Yes.
So what can be done to mitigate the negative impacts on the education sector?
I would say that we cannot look at the education sector in isolation. Yes. We look at it against what is happening in regard to the effects of coronavirus. So the education sector cannot fully be protected from the effects of coronavirus in isolation. You have to look at everything else. But as I said,
what do you propose given the limitation of our system?
We have bodies already that are charged with the responsibility of regulating education in this country. As I said, we have what is called KICD, previously called the Kenya Institute of Education, and it was a very active body then. They need to think about, suppose this situation prolongs, how can they help learners? What modalities can they put in place to help learners so that there isn't much loss, such that the learners can also take exams at some point? We have also the Commission of University Education. We also have the TVET body that can look at how they can advise institutions to see how they can handle the situation at hand. And that's why we have smart people employed in such bodies, I assume. People who can think through a crisis. You cannot sleep when you have such a challenge. You should be exercising your mind to ask yourself, how do we go through this crisis? As KICD, as the Commission on University Education, as TVET, what can we do to help institutions? Suppose this situation prolongs. How long can our institutions remain closed? What other modalities can be put in place such that some learning goes on, such that learners don't lose an entire year? These are the bodies that should do this thinking. And as I said earlier, I wish KICD would revive the radio broadcasts so that we now be asking ourselves, where will the learners access the broadcasts? Because radio broadcast is more effective than online and internet things. Radios may be within a walking distance of all the learners. Maybe there is a way of bringing them together. Those in Form 4, if they do not have a radio, if they can't do it at home, bring them together, avail a radio from a government, and make them go through learning, of course, observing social distance. These are some of the things that they should be thinking in regard to going into the future, because we do not know how long we shall be in this crisis.
Okay, as we wind up with this conversation about the impact of COVID-19 on education, what about the subsidizing of the fees, maybe terms, semester fees to the students, and also because we understand some students pay their own sponsor their education, and also talking about you also talk about learning institutions have been used as isolation centers for those suspected to have the virus. I mean, as it stands now, we've not had any information that to fumigate these institutions. What's your take?
I had somebody suggesting that this is the time to fumigate the institutions because the lands are away, and not all institutions are being used as isolation centers. Maybe this would be the right time to fumigate them, so that when the runners resume, the places will be safe for them.
Yeah.
However, it is still a challenge to do that because we are also experiencing a challenge of supplies because of the lockdown that is happening in other countries, and many of the items that we use are supplied from other countries. So how we are able to access enough for us to do those things, it will require a lot of patience, it will require a lot of innovation. But it would be a good thing to make the learning institutions ready for that. In terms of fees, I think, again, that is where the regulators, the bodies that regulate, because universities, colleges, and secondary schools, primary schools do not just offer education without a regulator. There should be a regulator who is able to assess the situation at hand such that we do not have, learners losing simply because there are institutions that want to profit from this situation. I hear there are some institutions that have said, we are offering online education and this is more expensive. Therefore, you are going to send us this more amount of money. Yet, the people you're asking to send you more money are not earning at the moment. So that's where the regulators need to be very keen, so that we do not have institutions that want to profit out of this disaster and charge for things they are not delivering, and trying to cushion even the runners themselves so that they do not have to be asked for money which they cannot afford at a time like now. We need to be more humane, but knowing how people try to make to profit from all manner of crisis, the best thing is the regulators to be very keen and observant, to put an eye on what is happening, the developments within the institutions, so that they are able to stop what should not happen, and they are able to advise on what should happen. In the same way they are saying that, when it comes to reopening of restaurants, these are some of the protocols that you need to fulfill. Yeah. In the same way, if any institution is going to offer education in a certain way, they need to be asked to provide that, to show how it will be administered, and to show the expenses that are involved. And I think we should be spending more of our time thinking about education, even beyond what we are now talking about. From where I sit, I think it would not have been even very urgent to talk about restaurants. We should have started by talking about education, because education is more critical. Because since you have told people to stay at home, they may not even need to go to the restaurants. But for education, this is something that should be going on, almost every day, and somehow it's not going on. Hence, this is something we should be thinking, and I haven't seen like we have done enough in regard to thinking about education that is now not ongoing.
Yes.
Yes.
So what's your parting shot even as we finish this conversation?
Tough situations do happen, like the one we are in, and they will come to an end. But I think the best thing is to learn from such things so that we come out of them better. We don't have to talk about it in future as misery that befell us, but as an opportunity to become better people. Because when this is done, because it will come to an end. We have seen countries that have started reopening. Hence, we can learn from this to become better Kenyans, become better people, become better believers. In all our sectors of life, there is something good that can come. And maybe the future generations will be able to look back and say, our parents, our grandparents were advised by a crisis that befell them, and they became better people going forward. Yes. When people have gone through crisis, there are times they come out as better people than they were previously.
Okay. Thank you so much, Reverend Thegu Mutahi, for making time to come around and share your ideas as far as the education sector is concerned. I am really grateful and so much thankful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And also, thank you so much for watching Youthpad. My name is Francis Ngala, and always to my fellow young men and women out there, don't hesitate to study from home. And you can also send your feedback through our social media handles at CACTV_Kenya and Facebook CACTV. See you next Friday.